Hello, everyone. I am telling the story of the Bible from the very start to finish in this channel. In this video, we are going to dive into the story of Genesis. But before we start, can I ask you something? Do you have experiences that made you to accept God or made your faith greater? If you have, please share your experiences in the comments. Now here is Genesis, the story from beginning to end. The beginning, creation, Genesis 1 to 2. In the very beginning, before time began, there was only God, nothing else. No sky, no land, no stars, not even a single blade of grass. Just silence, emptiness, and God Himself. Then God spoke. His voice alone began the story of everything. On the first day, He said, "Let there be light." And just like that, light shone out of the darkness. God separated the light from the darkness, calling the light day and the darkness night. Evening came, then morning, the very first day. On the second day, God created the sky. He separated the waters below from the waters above. The wide, open blue heavens stretched overhead, and the waters of the earth lay beneath. On the third day, God gathered the waters into seas, so dry land appeared. He called the dry land earth and the waters seas. Then He commanded the earth to sprout plants, trees bearing fruit, grass covering the land, seeds that would grow into more plants. For the first time, green life covered the world. On the fourth day, God made lights in the heavens, the great light, the sun, to rule the day, and the lesser light, the moon, to rule the night. And He scattered the stars across the sky, more than anyone could count. These lights would mark seasons, days, and years. On the fifth day, God filled the oceans with fish of every kind, small darting fish, great sea creatures, whales and sharks. And He filled the skies with birds of every color, eagles soaring high, sparrows darting low, and even tiny hummingbirds. He blessed them and said, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the seas and the sky." On the sixth day, God made all the animals of the earth. Lions prowled, deer leapt, sheep grazed, insects crawled, and elephants trumpeted. But God was not finished. He said, "Let us make man in our image." So He formed man from the dust of the ground, breathing His own breath into his nostrils. The man became alive. God named him Adam. Later, God caused Adam to fall into a deep sleep, took one of his ribs, and made a woman. Adam called her Eve, for she was the mother of all the living. On the seventh day, God rested, not because He was tired, but because His work was finished. He blessed the seventh day and made it holy. God placed Adam and Eve in a beautiful garden called Eden, filled with rivers, trees, and every kind of fruit. In the middle of the garden grew the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. God told them, "You may eat from every tree except the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. If you eat from it, you will surely die." Adam and Eve lived in peace, caring for the garden and walking with God. But one day a serpent came. The serpent was cunning and whispered to Eve, "Did God really say you must not eat from any tree?" Eve replied, "We may eat from any tree except this one. If we eat it or touch it, we will die." The serpent lied, "You will not surely die. If you eat it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." Eve looked at the fruit. It was beautiful and tempting. She took a bite, then gave some to Adam, and he ate too. Suddenly, their eyes were opened. They felt shame. They realized they were naked and quickly sewed fig leaves together to cover themselves. That evening, God came walking in the garden. Adam and Eve hid. God called, "Where are you?" Adam answered, "I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid." God asked, "Who told you that you were naked? Did you eat from the tree I commanded you not to eat from?" Adam blamed Eve. Eve blamed the serpent. So God spoke judgment. To the serpent, "You will crawl on your belly. The woman's offspring will crush your head, and you will strike his heel." To Eve, "You will have pain in childbirth, and your husband will rule over you." To Adam, "Because you listened and ate, the ground will be cursed. You will toil and sweat to grow food until you return to the dust." God made garments of animal skin to clothe them. Then he sent them out of Eden. At the entrance, he placed cherubim and a flaming sword to guard the way to the tree of life. Cain and Abel, Genesis 4. Adam and Eve had two sons, Cain and Abel. Cain grew crops, Abel raised sheep. One day they brought offerings to God. Abel offered the best of his flock, and Cain offered some of his crops. God looked with favor on Abel's offering, but not on Cain's. Cain grew angry. God warned him, "Sin is crouching at your door, but you must rule over it." Instead, Cain lured Abel into the field and killed him. God asked, "Where is your brother Abel?" Cain replied, "I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper?" God said, "Your brother's blood cries out from the ground. Now you are cursed. You will be a restless wanderer." Cain cried out, "My punishment is more than I can bear." But God placed a mark on Cain to protect him, so no one would kill him. Cain went out from God's presence and built a city. Generations passed. People spread and multiplied. Adam to Noah. After Adam and Eve were sent out of the garden, the Bible tells us the family line that came from Adam. Adam lived 930 years in total. His son was Seth, and Seth had a son named Enosh. Then generation after generation passed. Enosh had Kenan. Kenan had Mahalalel. Mahalalel had Jard. Jard had Enoch. Now Enoch is special. He lived faithfully with God for 365 years. And then, one day, he was gone. The Bible says God took him. He did not die like the others. After Enoch came Methuselah, who lived the longest of anyone in Scripture, 969 years. Then came Lamech, and finally Noah. And Lamech said of his son Noah, "He will comfort us from the painful toil of our hands caused by the ground the Lord has cursed." This chapter shows us the line of faithful men, all the way from Adam to Noah, tying the first family to the story of the flood. Noah and the flood, Genesis 6-9. But as people increased, so did their wickedness. The earth was filled with violence. God was grieved. He said, "I will wipe out mankind from the face of the earth." But Noah found favor with God. Noah was a righteous man. God told him, "Build an ark of wood. Make it with 3 decks and cover it with pitch. I will bring a flood to destroy all life, but you and your family will be saved." Noah obeyed. He built the ark exactly as God commanded. God told him to bring two of every kind of animal, male and female, and also 7 pairs of clean animals. When the ark was ready, the rains began. For 40 days and nights, water poured from the heavens and burst from the earth. The waters rose higher than the mountains. Everything outside the ark perished. But Noah, his family, and the animals were safe inside. After 150 days, the waters began to recede. The ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. Noah sent out a raven, then a dove. The dove returned with an olive leaf. Later, it did not return. The earth was dry again. Noah and his family came out of the ark. He built an altar and offered sacrifices. God promised never again to destroy the earth with a flood. As a sign, he placed a rainbow in the sky. After the flood, Noah's 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, had children, and from them came the nations of the world. Japheth's descendants spread toward the coastlands, becoming the peoples of Europe and far-off nations. Ham's descendants included Cush, Egypt, Canaan, and others who lived in Africa and the Middle East. One of Ham's grandsons was Nimrod, a mighty hunter, whose kingdom included Babel. Shem's descendants would become the line of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the chosen family God would use to bring his promises. Genesis 10 is often called the Table of Nations. It's like a giant family map that explains how the families after Noah spread across the earth, each with their own languages and lands. The Tower of Babel, Genesis 11. As people spread across the earth, they still spoke one language. They settled on a plain in Shinar and said, "Let's build a city and a tower that reaches to the heavens. Let's make a name for ourselves." But God came down and saw their pride. He confused their language so they could not understand each other. They stopped building, and the people scattered across the earth. That place was called Babel. God calls Abram, Genesis 12-25. God chose a man named Abram. He said, "Leave your country and go to the land I will show you. I will bless you and make you into a great nation." Abram obeyed. He traveled to Canaan with his wife Sarai and his nephew Lot. God promised, "To your descendants I will give this land." God made a covenant with Abram. He promised him children as countless as the stars. Though Abram and Sarai were old, God said it would happen. When Sarai did not bear children, she gave her servant Hagar to Abram. Hagar bore a son, Ishmael. But God said his covenant would be with Isaac, the child Sarai would bear. When Abram was 99, God changed his name to Abraham and Sarai's to Sarah. At last, Sarah gave birth to Isaac, just as God had promised. God tested Abraham by asking him to offer Isaac as a sacrifice. Abraham obeyed, but at the last moment, God stopped him. He provided a ram instead. God said, "Because you have not withheld your son, I will bless you." Isaac, Jacob, and Esau, Genesis 25-36. Isaac grew up and married Rebekah. They had twin sons, Esau and Jacob. Esau was the firstborn, a hunter. Jacob was quieter, staying among the tents. One day, Esau came home hungry. Jacob was cooking stew. Esau begged for some, and Jacob said, "Sell me your birthright." Esau agreed, trading his birthright for a bowl of stew. Later, when Isaac was old and blind, Jacob tricked him into giving him the blessing meant for Esau. Esau was furious, and Jacob fled. On his journey, Jacob dreamed of a ladder reaching to heaven with angels going up and down. God stood above it and said, "I am with you. I will give this land to you and your descendants." Jacob worked many years for his uncle Laban and married Leah and Rachel. He had 12 sons who would become the 12 tribes of Israel. One night, Jacob wrestled with a man until morning. It was God himself. God blessed him and gave him a new name, Israel. Artist Palette Joseph's story, Genesis 37:50. Jacob loved Joseph more than his other sons and gave him a colorful coat. Joseph had dreams that his brothers would bow to him. This made them hate him. One day, they threw him into a pit and sold him to traders going to Egypt. They told Jacob that Joseph was dead. In Egypt, Joseph was sold as a servant. Though he was falsely accused and imprisoned, God was with him. Joseph interpreted dreams. When Pharaoh had troubling dreams, Joseph explained, 7 years of plenty will come, then 7 years of famine. Pharaoh made Joseph second in command. During the famine, Joseph's brothers came to Egypt to buy grain. They did not recognize him at first. Joseph tested them, then revealed himself. His brothers were afraid, but Joseph said, "Do not be afraid. You meant evil against me, but God meant it for good." Joseph forgave them and brought his whole family to live in Egypt, where they prospered. The end of Genesis. Genesis ends with Jacob blessing his 12 sons and Joseph still ruling in Egypt. Joseph died at 110 years old, but before he died, he said, "God will surely come to your aid, and you must carry my bones up from this place." And so the story of Genesis closes, the story of beginnings. The creation of the world, the fall of man, the flood, the scattering of nations, and the promises of God to Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph. And that is the end of Genesis. Next is Exodus. Thank you for watching and listening.